This one looks kind of complicated when you first look at it, but we're going to break it down into components so that it isn't as confusing. When I read the directions, sometimes they have you mass cut for steps later on, and I get to that later on step and I was going, well, where's piece F? You know, and then you go back and oh, I cut that right in the beginning. So what I did is I'm going to break it down in components for you. So basically, this is block 2, which is still kind of in components. So basically, what we're working with is, this is what I'm calling the center block. So ordinarily, you might think that you're putting this together, but what you're putting together is this unit right here. This little guy that's 4.5 inches. These are all part of the outside stripping on the block. And then of course you have the sashing on this block. You have a line of flying geese, which is another component. And you have these that are the little applique circles. So we're going to start with the center of our block. And I'm going to show you how that goes together. And then we're going to work our way out. Okay? So, for the center of our block, we are cutting our background 1, whatever that is for you. We are cutting one 5 by 5 inch square. I've already taken half this away. So imagine a square here. One 5 by 5 square, and we are going to cut it, subcut it diagonally, so we end up with 2 half square triangles. In your pattern, they label this as the A piece, just so you'll know. What you're actually also cutting is from your fabric 3, which for me, my fabric 3 is a red one. So in this example, I'm using a reddish colored fabric here to show you how that goes together. And this doesn't go with that. Okay, you're cutting one 5 by 5 square again, and you're cutting it diagonally. Okay?
Oh, fabric 3, yeah, okay, that's it.
Okay. So we're starting out with our background 1, a 5 by 5 square, our fabric 3, a 5 by 5 square. What we're also cutting from our background 1 fabric, whatever that is on your swatch sheet there, that's why your swatch sheet is so important. We're cutting 8 3 by 3 units. So we're going to have 8 of those. We're going to take those 8 units. What they recommend is you draw a diagonal line and you sew 1/4 inch on each side of that diagonal line. For some reason, that's a difficult technique for me personally. What I really like is my 1/4 inch marker, which I do place diagonally, and then I draw on each side of it. Since I'm a paper piecing person, after that, I just follow the line. Easier for me. When you go to cut it, you're still cutting on the diagonal, so for me, I don't need that center line. Whatever method works the best for you, that you get an accurate half square triangle out of it. They leave you a little bit of trim room on this. If you're a little nervous about ending up with the 2.5 by 2.5 inch half square triangle, cut these bigger, cut them at 3.5. It's not going to matter because you're individually trimming them up. They left enough room that I didn't have a problem trimming these. I mean, it wasn't much of a trim, but it was enough that I could get them squared up really well. Okay, so you're also going to cut 3 inch squares, which will be your E. E is in elephant squares. And you're going to cut 2 of these squares from your fabric 1, 6, 7, and 9. That's your color assortment. 1, 6, 7, and 9. You are only, once you make these little half square triangles, you're only gonna use 3 of them. So don't let that confuse you. You're gonna have a spare. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna sew these along with these. You're gonna match right side to right side on the inside there. You're gonna sew on the lines or however you do it. Did this late at night and I didn't put right side to right side because this was a, but you can see I'm ending up with a half square triangle. I take this half square triangle, couldn't find my 2.5 by 2.5 inch template at home, so I'm using my 3.5 by 3.5, which I put on the 2.5 inch mark and trim. And you can see there's not a lot on this one. I actually did this at home on a different machine, just to go to show you. I was using my same 1/4 inch foot, but I was sewing on a different machine at home. I didn't have as much trim room as I do on this machine. And I didn't bother to test my 1/4 inch on that particular machine. I'm like, they're both the same brand, I'm using the same foot, it's gonna be fine. And I didn't test it, and there's no trim room. So that 1/4 inch is really important. Okay, so we now have these. We're gonna trim them to 2.5, press them open, trim them to 2.5 by 2.5. So what you're gonna end up with and be using, you've cut and made 4, but you're gonna use 3 2.5 by 2.5 of the 4 different colors, 1, 6, 7, and 9. Okay? These, here's where I thought it was confusing in the pattern. We're using these in 2 different places. We are using them here, and we're also using them on the outside sashing. So don't let it confuse you, that you're going, well, why do I have 3? I'm only using 4. Well, because later on in the pattern, when you get to the sashing part, you're going to use the remaining 2. Okay? But to put together the center, what it says in the pattern is you're only using 1 of each color. And like I said, there's just so many components in this one. I think they were trying to simplify the cutting and using them, so they had you make all these at once. I would have rather, I think I've seen it, had them make one set here, say you're not going to use the other one, and then have me make another set when I got to this stage. But they had you make them all at once. Okay, so you're going to use them in 2 different places. So, then we are going to take one of our little squares that we made. We're going to place it here. I don't think I mentioned these guys, did I? So, here you're doing a 2 7/8 by 2 7/8 inch square. This you want to cut accurately. You can't make them bigger, okay? You're going to cut them diagonally. You're going to end up with 8 of these. So this goes here, these go here, so we're going to get a unit that looks like this. Okay? Okay, so as you can see on our centerpiece here, 2 of our units are going to have our fabric 3, our red, and 2 of our units are going to have our background fabric. Again, referring back to it, the original ones we originally cut. So what I did after I made this unit is I placed this on here, and I ended up with a 4.5 by 4.5 inch square. I'm gonna have 2 different colors of this one and 2 different colors of this one. So here on my example, I have a yellow with my background and a purple with my background. With the fabric 3, I have the teal and the blue. So they're gonna all 4 be different colors. So I take one of these, I put it together, so I'm gonna have 2 different colors here and 2 different colors here. You are then gonna sew these together. Sew these 2 blocks together. You're going to make your second 2 blocks, which will be the mirror. So when you're sewing these together, be sure that you're mirroring. So my red one's going to go here, and my background color is going to go here, because they're a mirror. Okay? That's what it takes to make this center. So now we're going to talk about these sashing strips. And we're going to make 4 of them. You want to be aware of the colors you're putting together. Like if I put a blue square here and a yellow square here, that's not going to work. So you want to be aware and lay it out for yourself. Where do these go? Okay? So you're going to take a 2.5 by 4.5 inch of your fabric 3, which for me it happens to be a red. I'm going to take the 2.5 by 2.5. So here's again, they have you cut, when you cut these, they have you cut 12 of them. Okay? You're going to use 8 of them in your half square triangles that you're making here. You're going to use 8 of them. Okay? You're going to have 4 left over. They're going to go here. I know, when I first did this and I made these and I thought I have 4 left over. Well, I had to go to way into the pattern to realize, oh, I'm using those 4 right here. So again, 4 of them are going to be the corner, 8 of them are going to be the half square, as the half squares. So again, I draw a line diagonally, I stitch that, trim it to a 1/4 inch, press it open. Step 1. Step 2, after it's pressed open, I add my second, I stitch it, trim it, and press it open. This is a method of doing half square triangles that wastes a little bit of fabric, I feel. It's a pretty accurate way to do half square triangles. If you pre-cut this and try and sew them down to make your half square triangles and save some fabric, you're not going to have it quite as accurate. This is a very accurate way to do half square triangles. And if you're very industrious, save these and sew them together. Otherwise, put them in your dog bed. So, we are going to end up with 4 of these, okay? And these 4 are going to form the same color here in the middle of our sashing strips here. So what this would actually look like would look more like this. And again, I'm going to be very careful that when I'm working on this side, this one's going to go here. Is that right? Yes. This one's going to go here, okay? And this one will have to go here when I'm doing my sashing strip.
Yeah,
Make sense?
Yeah.
So you've got to watch what colors that are coming up. Okay, any questions about this center block? Not as complicated as you think. You just got to take it step by step and make sure your colors are matching up here in the corners.
Now, what you were showing, that way that kind of wastes the fabric, that also gives you a better point, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So the next thing we're going to talk about are these flying geese units here. There are 10 of these, and you have 9 colors. So you're going to use 1 or 2 colors twice. When I got this done, and I'm going to rip it out, I felt like this color disappeared in my background 3. It just isn't effective.
Yeah.
So I made another one, and someday when I have the time to rip this out, I'm going to replace it with this. These are the same principle as the half square triangles we had just done. You start out with 2.5 by 4.5 inch piece. That would be what's orange here. I have the 2.5 inch squares from background 4. Okay? And I lay them on here just like I did my triangles for here. It makes them pretty accurate, and it gives you the 1/4 inch you need to piece these together. So what you're going to do is you're going to sew them together in 2s. You're going to square them up to 4.5, each 2, and you're going to sew them together. You're going to have 2 up here, along with your background 2 pieces. You're going to have the remaining ones here, along with this strip here. We've already put this background piece on this one. So that's how you do these. Okay? So this is an applique process, and I'm going to step over here, Rick. You are going to cut 3 of your background 3. Mine happens to be this grayish color. You're going to cut 3 of those at 4.5 inch square. You're going to cut 4, and I don't think it gives you the colors. You get to pick these. You're going to cut 3 colors at 4.5 inch square. You're also going to cut pieces 3 inch square, and again, I don't think they give you the color choices. You can pick them. And you're going to cut 3 of your background. Okay? So what I do is I like Wonder Under. You can use Wonder Under, or you can use SewnSew. You're going to, in your pattern, there's a circle template. You're going to put your Wonder Under on it, and you're going to draw on that circle. Okay? You are going to iron that on the back of your fabric. Step 1. Step 2, you're going to cut it out. Okay? You're going to peel, if you're using Wonder Under, you're going to peel the backing off. Okay? Now, the way to find the center of your square, because we don't want our circles off kilter, right? I simply take it and finger press it twice. So I end up with a little 1/4 square like that, and I just press it good with my fingers. I do the same thing with my other fabric, or you can iron it if you like. Press it both ways. This gives me some match-up points that I wouldn't ordinarily have if I hadn't done that. And you have a lot better chance of getting your circle in the middle. So you match up all 4 corners there. When you get it positioned where you want, you tap it with the iron to hold it in place. If it is definitely where you want it, you iron it down.
Is that the only time you iron? At what points do you iron with the steam machine or the wonder under?
You iron it to the back of your fabric, and then you iron it down when you get the backing off of it. So, now you have individual squares, and it's time when you have that ironed on there to sew it down. I really like, I don't even know if the camera can pick this up, but this is a piece of invisible thread. We tested a lot of invisible threads. We like the YLI invisible thread. Works great, doesn't break. I use that to sew everything down. It doesn't even show. Once I get these sewn down, you're going to sew them together. I have these 3 sewn together. I'll finish up these 3 blocks and then get the whole line sewn together.
Do you have the YLI here at the
We
shop?
do, we do. We tried a lot of different invisible thread and we like it. Doesn't stretch, doesn't break.
You put the thread in the bobbin and thread the machine, or just threading the machine?
I do not. I have used it in my bobbin. My machine is really pretty good on the tension. It doesn't pull my bobbin thread up. So I just use, I usually sew with a very, very lightweight bobbin thread, the pre-round bobbins. I like them. So it's an 80 thread and it doesn't pull it up.
And then the invisible thread on the top.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And what stitch are you using?
I just used a regular straight stitch and
Like a
curve it around.
3.0 or 2.5.
Yeah, you can use zigzag if you prefer, a blanket stitch. I just usually use a straight stitch.
Will that fray? Will it fray?
You know, I don't have too much of a problem with that. I don't necessarily wash my quilts a ton. I don't let them out where they get dirty, but they do get a laundering and comes out pretty good. So we've sewn this together. We have this piece. We're going to sew it to this piece. Then we're going to join all 3 of these pieces, and we have our block 2 month. Not too bad when you just take it one at a time. As always, please feel free to call the store if you're having any difficulties. Come in. Wednesdays are usually the day when I can break away and work with you. And speaking of that, I'm going to travel down here, Rick. Block month 3 and block month 4 all have curved piecing in them. Now, there's instructions in there where you can also applique it if curved piecing totally freaks you out. But what we're going to do here, because I think curved piecing is a really valuable skill, there's some really neat quilts that have curved piecing in them. So I really like the back porch design templates. They have 4-inch, they have 3.5-inch, they have 7-inch, they have 8-inch. What we use in this quilt is the 4-inch. They're nice, they're thick, they're easy to cut with, they're easy for me to piece. So what we are going to do is I'm offering 10% off of this template set for people's in the class. And I am going to pick a day, probably the last Wednesday this month, that if you want to bring your machine in and watch me actually sew, which we don't do usually in class, I can show you easier ways to do curved piecing. So that's just something we're doing. You can applique it if you choose. I would say give this a try at least. There's a lot of neat things you can do with curved piecings.
Alrighty. Do you sell the 2.5-inch templates?
Yes, we also sell the 2.5-inch templates and the 3.5. If you're going to buy one or the other, I would recommend you get the 3.5. It's very handy. And the 2.5 mark on this is very easy to read. So it's handy for 2.5-inch squares also. The 2.5 feels really little to me. So, goodbye for today. Talk to y'all soon.